every couple that has lived in this flat has had some sort of tragic death. This obviously takes the cake.
Mm-hmm.
We have a story, Jen, you're not going to like it, so I don't know why you really wanted to be here, but...
no details were given to me, to be fair.
None for me either. Although I know it's a Martin request. We're taking a break from Mr. Holmes, I assume.
Okay.
Yeah, we're taking a break right quick. Martin posts some really good stories, but everyone does, so keep it up. I've been saying I want to try to do more short stories during the week, which I do, because literally I could do a story every day if I wanted, but the editing is, it takes up quite a bit. So I might start doing like a couple stories like beginning of the week, and then edit them all. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out the schedule 6 years later. But anyway, this story is requested by Martin, and he requests some ones that I've never heard of. But all you guys are doing great requests, so keep them up. We will get to them eventually. All right, so we are going to Worcester. Do you want me to go on Google Earth? Do you want to see where we're going? Actually, I kind of do.
To the English Worcester, or are we going to Massachusetts?
No, we're going to the one in the UK.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's technically Worcestershire, isn't it?
No, it's spelled
Worcester?
Worcester.
Yes, correct.
So this is Gillam Street, and we had the street, but I'm telling you, in 1973, it looked completely different. And I can show you what it looked like then, but it does not look like this now.
Was it country then?
No, it was the same setup with these duplexes or whatever you call this thing. Like
flats?
Is that, yeah, but it's like these like you don't see these where we're at least. It's like buildings, but they're also
like townhouses kind of.
Yeah, exactly. See, our apartments don't have I don't know. Anyway, we're going to this street right here. We're actually going down this way. I'm pretty sure the actual place we're going, as you'll see on the photograph, is right here in this top story up here where this red car is.
Okay.
My tattoos itch so much, I'm going to die. Like whoever died in that house. You are going to regret that, Missy. Holy shit. You're going to regret saying that shit. Holy shit. Oh my God. Well, who did live in that house? Well, we have a Mrs. Ralph and her 3 children.
Oh no.
Oh, Wolfie's like, I still stand by this. We're
actually going to Friday the 13th. Some people call this the Friday the 13th killer, like the original Friday 13th.
Isn't that Jason Voorhees?
Yeah, but it has nothing to do with that. It just happened to be on Friday the 13th. I will say in this house we're going to tonight, there have been some other things that have happened previously before this that...
At the house?
Yeah, at the house. So it could be a haunted house,
or as real estate agents call them, historic houses. So I say if it's described as historic, it means it's haunted. So just don't.
There you go. That's the flip.
Friday the 13th, April 1973, Gillam Street, Worcester. The father of 3 beautiful children, Mr. Clive Ralph, was fetching his wife, a 25-year-old Elsie. Elsie is a barmaid at a local bar. And keep in mind, this is in 1973, so before any of us was born. 25-year-old mother working at the bar, and the husband who lives in the house obviously is going to get wife at the bar, and he leaves his children at the house. They were only gone 15 minutes, 20 at the max. I mean, he's going to pick her up, and he leaves the 3 kids at home. Now, these kids are very young. The oldest, Paul Ralph, was 4 years old. Then you have Dawn, 2, and Samantha, 9 months. So he leaves them all at home, but there is a lodger at the house. So it's okay. This lodger, his name is David McGreavy. He's a 21-year-old. And so you can see they're super young. Mm-hmm. However, there is a boarder, a lodger that's friends with both the wife and the husband, and he's there and he loves the kids. So, I mean, he lives in the same flat, right? He's just renting the room. So he's like, hey, I'll watch them. Not a big deal. He leaves the kids home with this gentleman right here. I'm going to show you his photo. His name is David McGreavy, kind of a hippie. I mean, this is 1973.
Okay.
But he's
Isn't that
home
the
with...
last name of the guy in the Tessie song from the Red Sox? Yeah, it is.
McGreavy?
Tessie once said, McGreavy shouted, we're not here to mess around.
McGreavy.
I feel like McGreavy is the name of a villain in some movie or something too.
No, that's
Greavy,
McGruber.
like gravy.
Anyway,
No, that's
right?
not what I'm thinking of.
so McGreavy, 21 years old, he's in charge of the 3 kids, which is fine with everyone because he loves these kids, as you'll see.
Mm-hmm.
He's a lodger and a friend. They are completely fine with it. He watched the kids plenty of times before. Like, this is an everyday thing. However, it is Friday 13th, and we'll get to that. Husband goes, gets wife, barmaid, and they come straight back home. David McGreavy, the lodger, is nowhere to be found when they get back home. The house is a incomplete chaos. It looks like it was ransacked. It looks like someone went in there with a sledgehammer and started throwing furniture all over the floor.
Jesus.
It is pitch black in there because there was no lights. Like someone had ripped out the electrical. It is eerily quiet. Now,
And you said this is over a span of like 15, 20 minutes that this would have happened?
yeah.
Okay.
I'm guessing. So here's the thing. We know the bar's right down the street and he drove to pick her up, Elsie, the mother, the barmaid. However, I never saw in any newspaper them interviewing the husband or whatever and him saying, yeah, I was only gone for 30 minutes or whatever. So I'm assuming, it had to be no less than 30 minutes.
Okay.
No more than 30 minutes.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. I knew what you meant.
Very quick time turnaround. So the house is completely wrecked. Furniture knocked over, broken, lamps broken. The wall is dripping with this bright red substance, which was obviously human blood. No sign of any 3 of the children or McGreavy, the babysitter. The house is a wreck. There's human blood on all the walls.
All right.
Detective,
All of them?
yeah, in the flat. It's a small flat, but Detective Chief Superintendent Bob Booth was called to inspect the crime scene. And he said, quote, no investigating officer has ever had to witness such a scene of indescribable horror.
The couple returned to find their home in chaos, in the walls drenched with blood. There was no sign of McGreavy or the children. Their grisly fate was revealed an hour later when a policeman's lamp was shown in the spike railings.
All right, it's pitch black at this point. They see that there's blood on the walls. They see something happen, some intruder or something happened. The babysitter's not there. The children aren't there. And the policemen go outside, and only when they shine their light on the wrought iron railings, the fence that separates the flat.
The kind of fence that guy wanted you to get.
Mm-hmm.
Only then do they see the true horror of this night, Friday 13th. What they saw was completely unbelievable. One murder detective, a seasoned murder detective, was physically sick when he saw the scene. Quote, so horrific was the crazed attack that some of the injuries were not disclosed by the prosecution at Worcester Crown Court. So we're going to talk about the crime scene in a little bit, but let's talk about this guy, this babysitter who's not even there, McGreavy. He was found an hour later. He was by himself. He was found wandering the streets. He was heavily intoxicated. He had a, quote, very great deal of drink, end quote. He was drinking before the husband left to get his wife at the bar, obviously. He didn't just take a bunch of shots in 15 minutes. But when they found him, he was very drunk.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, he's a 21-year-old guy, and he is denying everything. I don't know what happened to those kids. I have no idea. It's not me. I've been out here all night. But obviously that's not true. Like this couple left him in charge of the kids. Where are these kids? And why are you wandering out here on the street? It took an entire day for David to break down and finally confess what he did. Like I said, this is him right here. This is David McGreavy. It takes him an entire day. It takes David an entire day to confess his crime, but he eventually did. He breaks down, he slumps forward, and he starts crying. This is what he says to the detective.
It was all too bloody gruesome. It was me, but it was not me. How could I do it?
How could I do that? That was me, but it wasn't me. I was doing it, but it wasn't me doing this. Now, you'll see in a second what had happened. But first of all, you remember I said David McGreavy loved children. He had a reputation for loving children.
Like in a creepy way?
No, like love them in a role model, not like a sexual way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So all things kosher over here.
Yeah. Can you read the next one?
David's father, Mr. Tom McGreavy, who lives near the murder house, said everyone who knew David knew that he loved children.
The mother, Mrs. Ralph, claimed that, quote, he was like a father to my children, always doing things for them. He used to sit bouncing Dawn and Samantha on his knee for hours. Now, the mother, as you'll see, is not so loving of the children at all. I don't even know why she continued to have children. One time she actually cuffed Paul, the oldest, handcuffed him to the bed because he was just being a kid, running around, too much energy. David McGreavy actually scolded her for that. Don't you ever do that again. A little bit more about McGreavy's background. He's 21 at the time of whatever this is that we're going to talk about. He was 21. He was recently kicked out of the Navy. He had his whole life planned. He grew up as a hippie, fun, loving guy, just kind of going with the wind, joined the Navy. He was going to make a career out of it. But he gets kicked out of the Navy in his first year. He was court-martialed. He started a fire that destroyed the entire mess hall. I couldn't find out too many details on what happened with that, but perhaps it was a prank. Either way, the blaze got out of control and it completely destroyed the entire building. The mess hall.
Didn't like what they were having for dinner that night.
Yeah, probably. He was kind of a jokester, but I could say that he probably didn't mean to do that. David at the time had a fiance who loved the fact that David, her soon-to-be husband, was going into the Navy. Maybe he'll be an officer. Maybe he'll be a pilot. Who knows? The Air Force at the time, 1973, this was the heyday of it. This was after the war.
This was peacetime?
Peacetime, heavily recruiting jet pilots. The new jets were coming out, all this stuff, new technology, the stealth bombers, all that stuff. It was an exciting time. And he had big dreams for that. And she did too. She wanted to be a Navy wife, right? However, he got kicked out, court-martialed for that fire. So his fiancee, Mary Allen, broke the engagement and refused to talk to him. Soon after that, he fell out with his parents. His own parents refused to talk to him. He's down on his luck right now. Now, I'm not saying he's, had a hard life or whatever. I'm not sticking up for him. I'm just telling you his background. Because we're trying to...
What happened here?
Well, when I tell you what happened, your mind is going to try to rationalize it. So I kind of want to give you a little bit of something to brace it with.
Okay.
So he had a falling out with his parents. He tried job after job after job, and he would be sacked as soon as he started. Can you read the next one?
People didn't like his attitude. He began to drift aimlessly.
Somewhere in this timeline, he meets Mrs. Ralph and her 3 kids. At the time he meets her, she has 3 kids, and her marriage is falling apart. Her youngest being 9 months old. When they met, the youngest was newborn.
And how old is Mrs. Ralph?
She is 25.
Okay.
So 4 years older than David.
Okay.
Her husband is 29, and they like David. He's fine. He's kind of a hippie, but he stays in there. He's paying rent, or trying to. She admits that she's just living with her husband for the children's sake. And after the kids go missing, and after David goes missing and he's found, eventually the wife does start to come out with other details.
From the Daily Mirror, she and McGreavy had an affair. Her husband did not know that they had been lovers for 3 months when McGreavy moved into his house as a lodger.
He moves into the house. None of these kids are his. They're all this other guy's, the husband's.
Mm-hmm.
So he moves in, 21-year-old. He loses his fiance and all this stuff. And
he's just inherited a whole family. But the husband's still living there.
The husband's still living there. They start an affair, him and the wife. The husband doesn't know about it. He's playing daddy to the kids. The kids like him a lot, and he's trying to take over that role. She's probably telling him, I'm going to leave my husband eventually, this, that, and the other. She is not a good person. I want to tell you right now. She is a terrible parent. She should never have kids. But he is also a terrible person, so I guess they're made for each other. She claimed that she loved David's, quote, happy-go-lucky attitude. The day of this murder, which is horrendous, by the way, which we'll get to, Mrs. Ralph had taken her youngest, Samantha, 9-month-old, to the hospital where she had injuries that the staff suspected was, quote, battered baby, end quote. Baby's face was bruised. The right arm had an injury. Baby was not supposed to be released from the hospital. This is Friday the 13th, hours before the murder. The first doctor to see the baby prior was so worried that the baby got discharged that he had contacted the family doctor, but as you'll see, he was too late. There was a note in baby's file not to release the patient saying, query, battered baby, which means we need to research this. But that was overlooked and she was accidentally released back into the care. They get home. Mom goes to the bar where she works and David takes over. David, tell us what happened. Just tell us what happened. How did this happen? He said he was drunk. He was having a, quote, drunken frenzy. He had a very great deal of drink. He was sitting there all along with these 3 kids, as he's been before. But Samantha, the 9-month-old, who was just released from the hospital for being a battered baby, was crying. Of course she's crying.
She's hurting.
She's hurting. She's got bruises on her face and her arm is nearly broken from being rough handled by the mother.
Jesus Christ.
Samantha just crying and crying. These kids should be sleeping. This is night. This is 11 p.m. at night or even later. They should be sleeping. Samantha is just crying, crying, and crying. He says, quote, all I can hear is kids, fucking kids, end quote, crying on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And finally, just the right amount of alcohol. He goes into the baby's crib, 9-month-old Samantha, and grabs her by the throat.
Both, Andalyn. Mom beat baby, not the guy. The mom beat the baby initially.
Yeah, mom beat baby, but mom wasn't there at the time of this. And she had nothing to do with what I'm going to tell you. But she was mishandling the baby. And the doctor had noticed that the baby was being mishandled. The mother will come out and say something to the effect of, I didn't write it down, but I'm just so upset because after Samantha, I got fixed and I can never have kids again. Like, that's what she said. It's like, that's your concern. Like, no one wants you to have kids.
Yeah. Some people
Please
shouldn't
do
reproduce.
Not procreate again. Thank you for your business.
But to her defense, she didn't know that it would get this far. So,
well, I mean, I think that when you have a child, like, I don't think anyone thinks that this is how their child's life is going to end.
I mean, mom's already cheating with the lodger, and letting this guy who she's cheating with hold the babies. Like, she's not a good person. I mean, that's terrible. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But Samantha kept just crying. So eventually he just takes his hands and just wraps around that little neck. He starts to squeeze. And he feels so much better. It's so much quieter. That screaming is now just a whimper. It is getting nice and quiet in here. I think I like this. I think I'm going to keep this up.
I don't like this. Just so that everyone's on the same page. So we all know.
Now, she is no longer screaming. It does not take very long to do this kind of deed. All right, on a baby. This is what he tells the detective.
I cut off her breath and then I went to the bathroom and picked up the razor blade and I used it on her.
So this is where it becomes, quote, bloody gruesome, because the walls, as we learned when the couple gets back to their flat, they're covered in blood, in human blood. And that's because Samantha's neck was cut with a box cutter, a razor blade, not a box cutter, razor blade.
Like the
the razor blade.
Razor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not like a
one
like
they have today.
Not like a shicked
like
or whatever.
yeah, I know.
Yeah, like a barber's razor.
Like one of these.
Yeah, but the kind with blade. Yeah.
So that's where the blood's going to come in. All right. It was bloody gruesome. And he keeps saying that. It was bloody gruesome. The walls were dripping. Although a baby, there's only 0.07 gallons of blood.
Oh my God.
Compared to the 1.5 gallons of blood in an adult. She was still drained of it. Her skull was also fractured. So now that he's killed Samantha, one down, you might as well do the rest, so it'd be peaceful and quiet. You can just go out and just walk on the street and just enjoy the night breeze. But you got to get these two others out the way first. Now, we know that the walls were dripping with blood. And the reason this is so is because when he had cut the neck and he had his hands around her throat, the blood was all over his hands at this point. So what did he do? Well, he had to wipe them off. Well, he remembers being in the Navy working in the motor pool, with the oil, and the oil was so slick and just get it everywhere. You just wipe it on these mechanic rags, but he didn't have that. So what did he do? He just put it right on the wall and just started wiping his hands off on the wall.
Oh dear. What a scene this was.
At this point, the 9-month-old is deceased. So now let's go take care of the 2-year-old and we'll just work our way up to the oldest.
Where are the other two when the baby is murdered?
The baby's in, the baby room, the crib room. And the other two...
Did they not know what was happening?
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I will tell you, I think they did know. Like, they knew... they're 4-year-old and 2-year-old. Like, what would they know? You know what I'm saying? Like, this guy, they loved this guy. David, like, he was the one that didn't hit them.
Yeah.
David, he just wants to relax, but he's got 2 more. He goes to the other room where Dawn and the oldest, young Paul Ralph, who was only 4, they were in the room and, quote, I did the same to Dawn. Same thing, choked and then cut with the box cutter.
Oh, I thought the oldest was 9 years old. No?
No, the oldest is 4.
Oh.
The husband is 29. The husband is 29.
Maybe, yeah.
Mama's 25. David's 21. And then you have the oldest, Paul Ralph, for Dawn to Samantha, 9 months. So yeah. Quote, I did the same to Dawn, 2-year-old Dawn. And then young Paul Ralph was next. He was the only one left. Now David had he's been trying to wipe his palms on the wall, get all that blood off we were talking about, but he just couldn't get that.
It must have looked like a slasher movie in there.
He just could not get that sticky, that slippery substance. He could not get that slippery blood off his hands long enough to choke out the 4-year-old. I mean, he tried. So he reaches over where the outdoor area, the little patio, it has a curtain, and instead of a curtain rod that goes across, they just had a wire, like a curtain wire. He rips that thing down and he puts it right on Paul's neck and he twists it around.
On Paul, I used the wire. Everything seemed to just cave in.
And by cave in, he is specifically talking about the mutilation of the 3 bodies with a pickaxe that was found in the next room. Now, hold on a second. Let me go back 1 second. All right. The couple, and this is from what the detective said, the couple returned to their home to find chaos. The walls drenched in blood, no sign of McGreavy or the children, so they're not in the house. Their grisly fate was revealed an hour later when a policeman's lamp was shown on the spike railings. So outside the flats, these wrought iron railings that are so popular here in the South, they're, iron. Now the spikes, so they are spiked on the top, but it's not like you'll cut your hand unless you got to put a lot of force to actually cut yourself on it. They're spiked, but
they're not super sharp.
Yeah, it's aesthetically pleasing to see them spiked. It's not like razor blades, because you'd have birds cutting themselves in half, flying into them.
People would just cut their hands if they were running their hands over it, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. But so their flat was partitioned off from the neighbors by this wrought iron fence. And as you see here, their grisly fate was revealed an hour later. So the cops, the detectives are piling up. There's ambulances everywhere. The lights of the cars, the street lights. Where are these children? It looks like a bloodbath in here. It took them an hour to go around the perimeter, because who would have thought you would find those 3 mutilated babies impaled on those spikes?
What? No.
Can you read from the Daily Mirror?
From the Daily Mirror, July 31st, 1973. I picked up the pickaxe and used it on all of them, and finally impaled their mutilated bodies on the iron railings of a neighbor's garden.
That's bad, because we have those fences here. If you want to impale anything,
take some force.
if you take a chicken, and I'm saying whatever comes to mind, a piece of chicken, and you want to impale it, you have to put some serious force down on that piece of meat for it to go through. So,
yeah.
Unfortunately, when I do these stories, I think about this stuff. Like,
Did you go try to test this outside?
Like, how would...
He's experimenting throughout the day with
Like, I get it. David, he wasn't in his mind, or drunken frenzy, or whatever. But how did he do this? And the only way, and obviously this is speculation, but try to think of a better way, or another way, to impale all three of these babies' bodies on this fence, which is higher up, above your head, is to take them by the legs and do one at a time and just slam them on there. That's the only way I can think of it. But the cops, as you said, they were physically sick when they shone that police lamp on that fence. They see crucified right there, all three children impaled. That's really fucked up.
Yeah. There are things I like, and this is not one of them.
Yeah, this is kind of a fucked up story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, it's a request. So what now? I mean, what do you do with this guy?
So he doesn't remember doing it, but yet he confessed?
Yeah, he confessed.
He said it wasn't me, but it was me?
He confessed. They tried insanity or diminished mental responsibility, but
I wonder if he dissociated.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a little bit. So this is not sticking up for this guy at all, but let me tell you, I found some other things that are kind of interesting about this house. Right before this incident, and the mom and the husband, before they moved in, right before, there was a couple that lived there, and their baby suffocated in a cot. So I guess the blanket suffocated them while she was sleeping. Before they moved in, so the couple right before them, after World War II, a veteran, quote, went berserk and killed his wife and children in that same flat. Every couple that has lived in this flat has had some sort of tragic death. This obviously takes the cake. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is like Amityville. Yeah, it's kind of like that. So, but that, that doesn't give him an out, right?
Right.
But it is kind of interesting because people do think cursed houses and stuff, Yeah.
Yeah.
And he did say, quote, "It was me, but it wasn't me." I don't know. So what would you do to this guy? Put him to death?
Life in prison.
His lawyers tried to claim insanity and diminish mental responsibility, but there was no evidence. Can you read from Judge
Mr. Justice Ashworth said after reading psychiatrist reports, "It is my belief that he is capable of such an act again. It will be a long time before those who are looking after him can be sure he is safe to be at large again, if indeed that will ever be possible."
Well, that time has come. In 2019, he was released. This is him now. That man, he was released, and this is the mother. He was released. He did his time, his commitment, and can you read from the Evening Standard?
From the Evening Standard on June 11th, 2019, a parole board report from the end of last year said that McGreavy had changed considerably since the triple murder. He first became eligible for release in 1993.
He is out. He tried to change his name. I'm be honest, a lot of people don't, we weren't born, this was 1973, so he was 20. That was, how long ago was that? I'm not good at math.
51 years ago.
51 years ago.
Almost exactly 51 years ago.
So
51 years and 2 days.
So he's 74 now. There is some stipulations. He is banned from Worcester. He can never go back to Worcester ever again. He's literally banned.
I would never want to. If I was in his position, I would flee the country. He probably can't.
Probably can't.
Yeah. He probably wouldn't want to go back either. But I found it interesting that a whole city, and that's a big city, banned him, because that doesn't happen very much.
No.
even with other
I
killers.
feel like I've not heard that sort of requirement before.
Well, this was, think about it. This is a triple murder of 3 children and where he impaled them. And this is like really heavy stuff, right? You know? So he's banned from Worcester, and he's also banned from Andover, which is where the mother, Elsie, lives. She goes by a different name, but that's where she lives. And she did comment like on 1 or 2 things, but they didn't really get too much commentary from her. In the parole document, Elsie does talk about the, quote, devastating effect the deaths had on her, quote, and still do have. But it also stated that McGreavy takes full responsibility for his crimes. A psychologist identified several factors which make it less likely he will reoffend. Some of those factors being, okay, he's got family support, you know, friends and family, and he has self-control, stuff like that. Quote, he has developed self-control as well as considerable understanding of the problems that he has and what caused them. And he has learned to remain calm in stressful situations. So he is out, and crazy story. April 13th was a few days ago, so this was the anniversary of that, and I guess that's why Martin requested it. I never heard of it, thought it was very interesting. He's known as the Worcester Monster, the Monster of Worcester, and
wow, so very sad.
Yeah, but you might hear him called the Friday 13th Killer, but you know, it's no relation to the movie, obviously.
Yeah.
Anyway,
wow.
I hope you guys enjoyed that little short sode. You know?
Yeah, thanks guys for dialing me in.
I'm glad that worked.
Yeah, no shit. I'm glad we paid for it at the very last second.
Nailed it. Paid for it for the year.
How much was it? Like 150?
Something like that.
Jesus fuck. That's why I didn't want to pay for it. It's $150 a year. God damn,
that's
man.
ridiculous.
I know, dude. What the fuck?
Unlimited minutes.
It's a lot, dude.
I know, but if we're going to be interviewing people,
they get your friends to join Patreon, or if you're listening to this, then join Patreon, because we need to be able to pay for Zoom.
That's right. So we can keep doing this.
I tried to say I was an educator, but that didn't work.
Plus, you should have told me. You could have used my email address.
We know I did that with Canva, and I got 2 years free from Canva, and I was going to keep getting it because I told him I was a teacher. But why don't you use your student email from your current classes?
He was using it from his old classes.
They just never checked. I was like, yeah, I'm a teacher, and they set up in Canva like, oh, this is your classroom type of shit, and I was like, cool. Yeah. I just started posting like gruesome murder shit.
I think that's what did them in.
They're probably like, what class?
You could have said it was criminology. You know.
Eventually, they
forensic.
Yeah.
Studies. Oh, goodness gracious.
Anyway.
Well, thanks guys for joining.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Try to do some more stories this week. Let you know. You know what I'm saying? All right. Well, hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll be on the Discord. So until next time, good night, you lovely, lovely people.
Kind of run this shit.